Apple je prijavio istorijske rezultate, prijavivši rekordnu kvartalnu prodaju i bolje od očekivane prognozu za naredni period. Ipak, rast cena memorijskih čipova brine investitore. Više o rezultatima Apple-a i onome što kompanija očekuje u narednom periodu razgovaram sa potpredsjednikom za uređaje za EMEA region u IDC-u Franciskom Jeronimo. Hello, Francisco. Welcome back to Bloomberg Adria Connect. Apple reported a historic quarter. What are your key takeaways from Apple's results?
Yeah, indeed, Apple reported a very remarkable quarter and remarkable results, just under 144 billion US dollars, 16% growth year on year. And this is quite remarkable. And the main reasons behind this growth and main drivers were, of course, the iPhone 17 lineup. iPhone is the biggest business for Apple, and it had a massive growth in the quarter. The second main reason is the growth in terms of services, which again reached all-time high revenues. And of course, the sales and the improvement in the business in China was the third main driver. Apple has been delivering quite poor results in China for the last few quarters, and in Q4 2025 they were able to grow 38%, which is quite remarkable in a very mature market.
It really is quite remarkable. But what did you find the most surprising in these results?
I think the most surprising, and starting again with China, is the fact that in a market that is completely dominated by the Chinese vendors, with Huawei leading the market, they were able to post such a growth and also revenues on the excess of $25 billion. So this is quite remarkable for Apple. They have been criticized quite a lot for the performance in China, but they were able to come back and to really growth in that market. What also it's interesting and quite surprising is how the iPhone 17 lineup performed, and we cannot underestimate what small changes in terms of design can make for people to really upgrade their smartphones and their iPhones. And they were able to take advantage of the super cycle that was expected, with many people having smartphones and iPhones that bought 4, 5, 6 years ago. And because of the design, the new colors, the orange, very popular color, they were able to drive those upgrades and growth in terms of the iPhone 17 lineup. And this is quite remarkable as well, because also Apple has been criticized and challenged how they would be able to grow the smartphone business, the iPhone business, considering that the smartphone is a very mature market with much smaller growth rates quarter over quarter. And we reached the top of the sales a few years ago in terms of total global sales. And Apple has been able to overperform the smartphone market. And this is quite remarkable for Apple. And it shows they are at the peak of their organizational efficiency. This is not just about a new design. This is not just about opening new markets or growth in specific regions. It's about making sure that the organization, the business, is so efficient that they are able to deliver that growth with the minimum possible investment in terms of marketing campaigns and promotions. And that's what Apple was able to do, and that's why they end up the quarter with very lean inventories.
Now, it's not a secret that Apple's been struggling with AI. Are there any signs of improvement on that front?
Well, in terms of AI, there was this announcement, the partnership with Google, and the Google Gemini will basically be the source for the intelligence Siri that we expect to see announced this year. There's been criticism around Apple and the AI deliver performance in terms of what they can offer to their customers. But with this partnership, there's the expectation that they will be able to catch up with many other players that have been offering quite interesting digital assistants, more intelligent digital assistants. And of course, Siri is a very important component and part of the experience Apple offers to end users, being able to have a conversation with Siri and get the answers we want, similar to what we already get on applications from OpenAI with ChatGPT, and even Google Gemini on Android phones provides a much better experience. So there's the expectation that this year they will indeed put to rest the criticisms they have been facing over the last year.
Now, most concerning of all to Apple investors, based on their questions to the company, is the impact of the global memory and supply chain crunch. Can you tell us more about that? How much could memory chip shortage impact smartphone market? Where did this shortage come from, and is there a reason to worry?
Yeah, indeed, that's one of the most challenging crises that we have seen in recent years. The memory shortage is mainly driven by the fact that the key memory suppliers have been moving production to the high-speed memory that is required on AI data centers, because they see a much bigger margin offering that memory, which has huge demand at the moment. We all see the investments that multiple companies are making on AI, and of course that all rely on the data centers where the LLMs run and all the AI workloads run. And what those suppliers have been doing is basically taking advantage of the business opportunity and making way more money by delivering this memory for AI data centers compared to the memory that they deliver to and sell to consumer electronic companies like Apple and HP and Dell and all the other players in the smartphone, PC, and any consumer electronic device that requires memory. And what is basically creating is a shortage in terms of supply. And when there's a shortage in supply with high demand, prices go through the roof. And that's what we are seeing. There's the biggest challenge, and why this is unprecedented, is because it's not driven by a spike in demand, is driven by a constraint in terms of supply. Some of those suppliers announced they will stop producing memory for consumer electronics, and of course that's becoming an issue for all PC makers. The memory is a key component in any smartphone or PC, for instance, and the prices going up so dramatically, of course that will end up the end user paying more for their smartphones, PCs, etc. And the biggest challenge is not just the fact that prices will go up, costs will go up, but the fact that some of the vendors may not even have access to the memory, which means they will not be able to launch some of the products they probably had in the roadmap for this year. And of course, Apple and the likes of Apple and Samsung, they are in a slightly better position. They have long-term agreements with some of those suppliers, which will grant them supply for some time, but of course they will not be able to avoid the price spike in terms of the memory, which means that the majority of the vendors will basically have to pass the price and the cost to the end user or absorb the cost through their margins, and that will drive sales down, especially among the smaller players that will not be able to absorb the cost, and they will have to put the prices up. And we expect, IDC, we forecast in a more pessimistic scenario, the sales of smartphones, for instance, to drop around 5% in 2026, and the sales of PCs to drop around 9% in 2026. So it's quite a dramatic situation for all vendors. And also the fact that this is not a short-term thing that will be resolved in the next 3 to 4 months or 5 months. It's a long term. So we expect this to continue next year, because ramping up production takes a couple of years to build the manufacturing capability for other suppliers to be able to supply for the current demand.
So the next couple of quarters will be challenging for companies and consumers. Francisco, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you.
Toliko u ovoj temi dana u Bloomberg Adria Connectu. Ja sam Marija Jevtić, ostanite uz Bloomberg Adri.